people from the industry. On my course, in my class, I've taken about 3 cohorts per year. There are 25 of us. There are about 3 educators. I'm the only principal in the room. There's 1 teacher and there's a DP from a secondary school in Auckland, and the rest are from right across the spectrum. So there's a guy that works in cybersecurity and water care at Auckland, and there's another person that is an HR in the NZ Defence Force Navy out of Birkenhead. There's another, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, there's another guy that works in the Brethren Churches doing app development and marketing. There's another guy, there's about 3 people from Sri Lanka, mainly come from an accounting background. So there's quite a diversity of people, and that in itself is a rich experience. It's also interesting, I find it interesting because I talk about education, and most of their experience with education is either when they're at school or with their kids are currently at school. So the first 6 months of the year, it was typical university type tertiary stuff where we go to online work or we do workshops in Auckland. You have a topic and we do some learning and do some assignments, and it's pretty straightforward. Right now we're in research planning mode. In fact, this weekend I have to submit my full-blown proposal, and then the rest of the course is essentially implementing the research, evaluating the research, reporting on the research. So to do research, you've got to come up with the problem, and my problem essentially is that the curriculum is too full. The primary curriculum is far too full. There's too much stuff in it. I've been in the education game for almost 30 years, and in that time we've added a bunch of stuff and we have taken actually nothing out of it. So we're asking teachers to teach more, kids to learn more, and the school day still starts at 9 o'clock to finish at 3. By definition, things aren't going to be done well because we don't have any more time in which to do them. That's the fundamental problem. Now, in my world, I would zero the primary curriculum and we'd start from scratch and we'd just build up with what we actually think we need, and we wouldn't just keep adding stuff on. It turns out I don't run the world, and so we can't do that. So we have to reduce the scope a little bit. So these are essentially the research questions that I'm wanting to look into next year. So the main question is, how could generative AI enhance, and by enhance I mean accelerate and personalise, the learning journey for children in years 6, 7 and 8? The reason I've picked on generative AI, because in a perfect world, one of the things I would change is I'd have class ratios of 1 to 15. Nothing magic in the number 15, but essentially really get the class ratios down, because then the teachers could genuinely do what they need to do, which is build good, deep knowledge and understanding of the kids in their class and what they need to do to cause learning for them. Now, the blunt truth, in my view, is that New Zealand's never going to be a rich enough country to get to that point at all. But generative AI, theoretically, at this stage, because it's still quite a young technology, has the chance to actually enhance the learning journey for kids, because it can personalise the learning journey for kids. So we could get an AI engine, we could put in the New Zealand curriculum, we could tell the AI that a child in year 7 should be able to do this for maths, and this is where they need to be by the end of a particular period of time, and the AI would effectively take them on a learning journey, teaching them from content, quizzing them on the content, and adjusting the teaching pace based on the responses from the child. That's the theory. So if you read a bunch of the research that's out there at the moment, and it's young research, so it's not longitudinal, it's not done over many, many years, because AI hasn't been around long enough to do that, is the premise that AI will enhance the learning journey, particularly in reading, writing and maths, and the core sort of subject areas. So the 4 questions that sit underneath that are the 4 that I'm really going to want to dig into. So basically want to do an academic measure. So if there's a deliberate teaching of AI literacy to primary age kids, will they cause faster progress in English and mathematics learning areas? So in other words, if we're using AI in their learning program, will they be learning faster and deeper than the general cohort of the same age? Number 2, if we teach explicit critical thinking, does that impact on their use of generative AI? So you would have seen some of the dramatic headlines in the last couple of years about how AI can give false answers, give distracting answers, not give full answers or responses to the prompts that are put in. And more than ever, we, the humans, but particularly our kids in this case, because they're the focus of our conversation, they need to understand critically what's going on. Can they think critically about the responses they're getting back? Number three, what ways could the use of AI in the design of learning promote children, increase their engagement and motivation? So much the same way kids are highly attracted and motivated and engaged to play video games for long periods of time, there's a theory that technology or the use of technology increases engagement and motivation in learning. And I want to test that a bit, see if it's actually true. And at the moment, some of the stuff is emerging around the world on this is it's split. And what it tends to come down to is the amount of time. So if you're getting kids to spend more than sort of 3 hours of course of a school day using generative AI, I think their motivation and engagement is going to start to peter away. There's a school in the States called Alpha School, and their general day looks like 2 hours of what we call reading, writing, maths, the academic focus, heavily use of AI in the learning design for that 2 hours, and then they're off the screens for the rest of the day. Number four, want to test the pedagogical approach. So if we're going to teach reading, writing, maths in this way with a heavy infusion of AI, how does that impact on the role of the teacher? What does that look like? So we need to basically ask questions of the teachers. So when at the moment it's shot over, teachers are using AI to do their work. So there's a lot of use of AI to prepare their resources, a lot of use of AI to do some analysis on different bits of data sets, and they're playing with it, would be the best description. Okay, so they find a tool they like, they're having a play, they're experimenting. Occasionally it's used with children. I'll give you a couple of examples of that shortly. What we're talking about here is the teachers are concerned for their kids in Kawerau, and I'm talking about half the kids in Kawerau next year, so a class of 2 classes, rather than there'll be 4 in that space next year. So we're talking about their learning program having a heavy use of them using AI in the program. That doesn't mean they're sitting in front of the screen for 2 or 3 hours doing reading, writing, and maths and constantly putting prompts into the AI, but AI will be a part of their program. Only specifically covering, or from a research point of view, we're only looking at reading, writing, and maths. It doesn't mean they're not doing the whole curriculum. It just means from a research point of view, we're focusing on reading, writing, and maths. Got to gather some data because we're doing research. So again, it'll be reasonably extensive. So the PAT achievement tests that we use, that a lot of schools use, we'll be using again next year, is the way of chosen to measure the academic comparison, because it is essentially a standardized norm reference test that's consistent throughout New Zealand. So I can get the results from those PAT tests and I can compare that to the general cohort because they are standardized and they are norm referenced and make some conclusions. So that's how we're going to do the academic measure. I'm going to survey the participant students weekly and look at their engagement and motivation. That'll be a pretty short task for them to do each week. Periodically through the period of the research, we'll conduct some student interviews, which will be videoed, and also survey the parents, because I'm quite interested and keen to see what parents are noticing at home and how that might change the conversations around their learning. And the last one is I need to be interviewing the teachers to find out how it's impacting on their role. Now it's research, so I need to be careful about some things. So I just want to reassure you that some things are being thought about. So the BOT, the board, have been informed from in the early days when I started thinking about this earlier in the year. And what it looks like in practice now is every board meeting, there's a separate report from my principal's report that goes to the board, which updates them on where things are at, and they quiz me and ask questions for clarification. And then every week I actually meet with Sam in her capacity as chair, and I update her on anything that's happened in the intervening week as well. It's ethics approved, or it will be if I pass this next assignment. There'll be ethical approval, so no information is going to be gathered from anybody, child or adult, unless the ethics forms have been signed, and the kids can't sign ethics forms on their own behalf. They must be signed by their parent. So it's approved by the institution. The generative AI engines that we use won't be used to improve their own model. In other words, whatever data is put into them, so this happens at the moment in our Google workspace that we use at Shotover. The way Google have set that up is unlike when you're at home on your own Google account and you put a prompt into Gemini, you're contributing to the learning model that's happening in AI. Shotover within its domain is not. So whatever I, as a Shotover user, put into Gemini, it does not go back up into Google's large language model and get used. So we'll only be using AI engines that do the same thing. More and more now, as the engines are coming out, if they're paid versions, then you get data protection. If they're not, you don't. There'll always be humans in the loop, which is a good computer software principle, and we'll be applying that as well. In other words, what that means is we are not going to say to a child, here's an AI engine, we want you to play with this and use this in your maths learning, and we aren't going to look at that or monitor that or check that and see how that's going. We're not going to just leave them to it and let the AI basically run their entire learning program for them. And I've talked about consent. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like, this is a screenshot from our Google Gemini engine. So I've just highlighted the red box down below. That's every time we go into Gemini, that's what we get. It's just Google reassuring us that we're not sucking up any data into our big cloud in the sky. Right, questions? Where I've got a large number of the board in front of me, and I've heard all of this before. So if you're not on the board, you're probably going to get we can ask more questions.
What is your hypothesis that the result is going to be?
Say it again.
What is your hypothesis that the result is going to be? Do you think it's going to end up being kind of another half a teacher in the room? Do you think what do you think is going to be the result?
Oh, before I give you an answer to that, I'll just give some back. So so part of doing research is the literature review, and so I've been deep in some of the literature at the moment that's out there, and it's not a lot. And a lot of the research is out there at the moment is there's two themes emerging. One is it's heavily high school or tertiary weighted. There's not a lot in what the Americans will call elementary school or primary school. The second thing is academics in a rush to get research out there haven't done genuine research. Like I'm not saying this is high level, PhD quality research, but it's actually working with kids on the ground to see what testing some questions. What a lot of academics have done in the rush to get something out there in their name is they've done keyword searches without doing genuine research questions and experimenting. So you have to dismiss a lot of that when you're doing your review. So the research is quite split on some of this. So it's working on the premise that the use of AI and the engagement of that with kids is quite motivating. And because AI will pitch the learning theoretically to the correct level in a more nuanced way and give more immediate feedback to the student than a teacher can if they've got 30 kids to worry about, then it will cause the learning to happen faster. I think there's some merit to that. I think the key, and this is my theory, my hypothesis, it's a guess, it's an educated guess, probably not heavily educated yet, but getting there, that because the feedback's a bit more specific and immediate, which is the definition of quality feedback in a learning sense, then most kids will move a bit faster in the learning. It doesn't mean every kid using that are going to be where we'd expect them to be for their age, but they all should make good progress. That's my theory.
They all become significantly faster.
Yeah.
That look like going into the next year because they will be significantly ahead of the other half of the class.
Yep. I think humans being humans, I don't think they're all going to become significantly faster. But that's the thing is we can't, with the AI thing, we can't run from it. it is what it is. Like Steve Hansen and the All Blacks used to say, you have to walk towards the pressure, so you have to face the challenge. And I think that's the challenge for the world at the moment, let alone education. But it's definitely the challenge for education is it is here. We might like it, love it, or somewhere in between, but it is here. So that fact is not in dispute. And so as a school here, but also as a profession, we need to look it in the eye and say, how is it going to enhance our job and how could it enhance the learning of kids? So to answer your question specifically, I'm talking about this purely from a research point of view. So I'm here to talk about what I want to do from a research point of view. From a school point of view, so take researcher hat off, put principal hat on, AI is going to be part of what Shot Over does. So the kids that may, let's say a large proportion have moved significantly further ahead, then I think we just keep using it. If that's worked, why wouldn't we continue to do that? The difference is we wouldn't be measuring it from a research point of view.
So the idea is to have all the kids in Cara to do it, or are you pitching, obviously the parents who don't want their kids involved can withdraw, but otherwise everyone?
Yeah, so
Or you
the way the numbers have panned out for next year. Oh, right.
Why?
Yes, it
does. Or you weren't well all of a sudden. So in Kawerau next year, the way the numbers have worked out, it's going to be 4 classes. So there'll be 4 teachers in there. And like this year, there's 3. Half the habitat, so they're going to team teach. So Tetley's going to be one of the teachers involved in this project, someone else, and then Kim will be the other teacher with Chris. So you guys have just got some information that hasn't gone public. Let's say roughly, I don't know, how many kids are we talking about? 60? 60 kids in those 2 classes. Okay. In a perfect world, a large proportion of those will get consent from their parents to be part of the project. If I don't have consent, they'll still be taught by Tetley and her teammate. They'll still have AI as part of their program. I won't be measuring any of their work from a research point of view. So researcher hat on, principal hat off, because I don't have consent.
And so do you need a minimum to have, I guess, to validate the data you're going to gather?
That's the feedback I'm going to get from my proposal. So at the moment, I've said it could be up to 60 participants, but I would like, in my world, I would like about half that at least. So 30 would be great. Yep. Good question.
And do you have parameters, say it doesn't go the way you hope? Is there a trigger point where you have to reconsider continuing with it, or?
Yeah, the other reason I like this institution that I'm with is if this was happening at Otago University, it'd be very tightly controlled in terms of what I'm reporting on and what it looks like. And so you plan that now, and then you just got to try and make it happen. Whereas these guys, if things aren't tracking the way you want it, and you want to change the research question, you want to change the methodology you're using, you want to change the data collection methods you're using, then you go in to negotiate with the supervisor and another person from their staff, and you renegotiate what they call their learning agreement. So if I see this not trending in any way that's useful and helpful, then we have a chat about that.
Do you have an example of what it looks like?
This is the problem with AI. I can I'll ask Tetley or Kim to jump in, but I actually going to use one of Kim's examples because I think it was really cool. So late last term, Kim's kids had done some writing, like actual writing with pen and paper. And the high school had asked us to do some writing for the year 8s in preparation, write letters to the new teachers was, I think, the task. And they sent a rubric through of criteria about what a great writing sample would look like. So Kim used that rubric with the kids writing, and what Kim did, she got the kids to do it. So that she gave them the rubric, they had their bit of writing, and they assessed themselves against the rubric. Okay. Then they put their writing into an AI engine, and they put the rubric into the AI engine, and then they asked the AI to assess the writing against the rubric. So now you've got two results, if you like. You've got the child self-assessment and you've got the AI's assessment. Now, any combination you can imagine happened. So some were perfectly aligned, some the child had assessed themselves higher than the AI, and vice versa. Now, whether who's right or who's wrong is a bit secondary to then the conversation that occurred out of that. So Kim can give you some examples of the one I do remember. Is one girl, I think, said her realization actually was because she marked herself harder, if you like, than the AI had. She said, maybe I'm a bit hard on myself sometimes with my writing. And now you're getting into engagement and motivation conversations and actual personal about how they perceive their writing. So that was really just a starter for a conversation. Do you guys want to jump in with?
There's engagement as well. So you've got a little bit of that novelty factor there, a little bit. You know, they don't listen to mum, they don't often listen to the teacher as well. So to have feedback from that source that also got them reading and understanding what their rubric was or what these things were that so it got them thinking about that in conversations. And there was also a couple the other way that were quite creative writers and saw themselves as their identity about being great writers, and this had actually marked them probably harder than I would have. And we talked about the whole human element that we also think of them as, oh, you're a great writer. So it took that out as well, which was good because it gave them, oh, I can see it, thought my structure was off, or it gave just as really good conversations and made them actually interact with the rubric, which, as I told them, it was a really boring rubric. It's a really boring rubric, but I got them interested in it.
We've been and Stanley and Max, and actually possibly Lane as well. We've been using Gemini, so it's all kind of encased. And they've got this thing called Gems where you tell it to take on a persona, and so we push one of those out because we're looking at mysteries of the world. So rather than it being led by me, we do the reading element. And then they've got this mystery gem that they can go and ask questions of. So they might go, okay, we've just read about the Bermuda Triangle. And that was really cool because Max was just like, the map's wrong. So it had this map of the Bermuda Triangle that was generated by AI. So this is boosting their critical thinking. So I'm just like, yeah, absolutely right. Go draw me a new one. And only two of them picked up that the map was wrong, which was really cool because it's just like, I'm just putting it out there because it was written by AI. And then this Gemini gem, they are researching their own stuff. So they're all so into writing plays at the moment. Lots of thespians in the group. But they're getting all the information through this Gemini gem. So they're going, okay, I want to know more about the Bermuda Triangle. And instead of it just going, well, here's some facts, it goes, well, what do you know? Oh, I know that it's a part of, I know ships and planes have disappeared. And then it will come back with some questions. And so it's not just here's a whole heap of information. It asks and then responds. And we're forever tweaking it. So last week, I think it missed one wee child was asking about the pyramids of Egypt. And then I think they misspelt something, but I think they wanted cave and put in cure or something. Anyway, they got in this massive response about Egyptian cures for illnesses and stuff. And they were like, I don't know why it's giving me all of this. And it's just like, okay, well, let's think about what you put in and what it's doing. So it's, and so the gem is evolving with the children. So, and it's just a tiny part of our reading program just to help them, one, let's try using AI for this and seeing their engagement. And from what I've seen, they quite like it. And it's safe. We can watch the conversations that are happening. We can look at it. So.
Yeah, and the key there is it's not AI is the magic thing. AI is just the tool. It's all actually about the kids and the learning, but it's that responsiveness, which is just handy. Like you're not having to go and find that encyclopedia and look it up, but also to model to them like around the critical thinking. We found It's handy for doing quick differentiation. We talk about like maths warm-ups and things like that. It's kind of handy, but it's also really good for showing them the mistakes and really modelling that understanding to look and not believing. To the point like with a maths warm-up now, instead of having answers we give it, well, did the computer get it right? I don't check the answers, we check the answers, and it's really good to find mistakes. Yeah, and then that'll somehow boost curiosity and engagement.
It's the GEMS thing's only been out, what, 2 months?
Maybe, yeah, 3 months, maybe.
So in terms of what we'll do with the program next year and how we'll use AI is still very much in design phase. Like, to give you an example, I was on a call, I tracked a guy down in Wellington that runs a company that builds generative AI engines for company, I haven't told you about this guy yet.
Yeah.
So he's giving us the back end basically, and what it would look like, or the way I think it would look anyhow, is it gets plugged into our Google workspace. So we've ticked the privacy data protection part. We can add any content we want into it. So we've got our scope and sequence for the maths program we're doing, and we've got all lessons that go with it. So then the AI engine knows what the sequence of lessons and what the content is that should be taught to the child. And theoretically, then we can say for this particular child, this is the learning pathway they need to be on. They're starting here. And we think within a month they should be by here. So can you design what that looks like in terms of activities? And the reason, so I can't be any clearer from an actual what it would look like from an AI point of view, other than there's certain principles we're going to adhere to, which is around the privacy, data collection, consent stuff that we're not going to break. The board have been very supportive, but they've been very clear on one thing, which is data protection. And the school through the board have to give me organisational consent, because we're dealing two reasons. We're dealing with kids under 18, and we're dealing with achievement data or assessment data that is technically owned by the school. So, even though as a principal I would naturally view that data and use it, I can't use it with my researcher hat on unless I've got consent to use it.
Do you anticipate that you can sort of ask the AI to moderate itself for like neurodivergent learners or dyslexics or whatever?
Oh, it's funny. Not funny, but I was talking to Mark about neurodiverse AI type stuff, because there's a bit of literature emerging, or people are looking into the use of AI with neurodiverse children. So I'm not sure. I don't have an answer to that. I'm not sure, but it's certainly an area of research.
Would you take neurodiverse children in your cohort?
We don't have any normal children in school, really. We're all a bit diverse.
It's the same thing that
Here.
the essential we're still about as a great humans. Just we've got some extra tools to support some of the learning.
I wonder, the more I think about that element, and even after the conversation I had with Mark today, which was a random meeting for that particular topic, but I wonder if when I do some of the video interviews next year, whether that might emerge as a bit of a thing.
And so for all the kids involved, are you going to have then like specific, I guess, data at the start where they are in terms of knowledge? And then I guess you're taking because we got the pie chart type thing, but they train because kids learn as well, even without AI. Sometimes they just pick one view. So it's like kind of for each kid, you can estimate roughly they train for the year and then compare to what's happening with the AI. Is that how it's going to
be? Hear me really carefully here. All education research is inherently flawed.
Okay.
All research is
because you can compare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if I get 30 kids out tomorrow and I give them a maths test, and then I compare and I give them the same test at the end of term 1 next year, same kids, right? And they make more than a term's worth of progress. What do I attribute that to? Do I attribute that to the wonderful 6-week break they had and their brain refreshed and they came back all great and they had 10 weeks of amazing learning in term 1? Do I attribute that to the fact that it's summer? Maybe that's contributed to it. Do I attribute that to the fact that they just seem to be natural mathematicians and love learning maths? Do I attribute that to the fact that the teacher they had was highly experienced? Do I attribute that to the fact that they're fit and healthy and so the nutrition's great and their brain's switched on? Like there are so many variables that continue, and I know I'm preaching to the converted a bit, but there are so many variables that contribute, and researchers sometimes get into the mistake of saying this caused that, and therefore we do this if we want that outcome, and that's not necessarily the case. So to answer your question, yes, every there'll be a PAT maths test done, so we've got a baseline assessment that's standardised and norm referenced, and then that'll be done twice next year. So the best conclusion you could come to is say, if there was a significant improvement, is that we've seen a significant improvement. We think it may be related to X, Y, and Z.
And will you be doing that same tier of tests for the rest of the other cohort that aren't?
Yeah, every kid in years 3.
But and it'll be on that same timetable.
3 to 8. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so you'll have to do that.
The reason I'm using PAT, it's a nationally recognised test. It's all work in terms of benchmarking that's been done, and I can compare that to the national cohort expectation. I don't have to worry about comparing it to the Shotover cohort, because we're not going to not use AI, or I'm not going to ban AI from the rest of the school in order to get a comparison. You can't do a control group like that. That's a bit unethical to.
My class.
So you, all right,
We
just nothing, no remote use of screens whatsoever. That was it's a very fraught exercise setting up control groups in a school for research.
Will the kids know they're in a different group?
No, not really, because there won't be a marked difference. Like,
So there's not going to be like jealousy that these guys are doing it this way and I'm not.
no.
get their own computers and like
Because if the essentially the biggest difference will be the 2 teachers teaching this group will be under the mandate, if you like. You must find ways to use AI in the learning program as much as you can, whereas the other teachers will be if they want to, because I can't say to them don't use it. So that's essentially the big difference. So no, they won't know really. No more than they know there that, teacher A is doing this with their class and I can see teacher B over here doing this. Yeah. Any other questions?
How did you come to the decision of choosing this group of kids and this cohort?
In this space? Yeah. Very, very, very practically, actually. So I can't remember the steps we went through. I mean, it's been 2 significant conversations. I had one with the board a couple of months back, and I had one with the APs probably again a couple of months back. And because there's one thing, I'm trying to make the research work within the context of the school I'm leading. And there's the research sort of demands, what's the research asking, and then there's the logistics of actually how does it work on a school that's operating. So in a practical sense, it works better for us doing it in Kawerau because of the number of the kids, and we can set up, because we're going to have 4 classes in there, so I can set up a team. I wanted a team teaching situation, not a one teacher participating. That was a key criteria. So if we're going for a team of 3, like it is this year, it would leave one teacher isolated, which wasn't ideal. So that's a school concern rather than a research concern. It's not going to work over in Pori D because their numbers are a bit different and their structures are a bit different. But it's pretty practical based, actually. It's got nothing to do with the kids, like who they are and how many boys or girls there are or anything like that.
I just noticed that there seems to be a few trial with a group of age groups, because from what I've noticed from Stanley to Walter's age, their writing and spelling is very different. And then obviously this is going to be a new thing for them to learn. And then when they get to the high school, there's going to be a changeover of the NCA to the, so they're almost going through these different changes, and it seems to be that kind of particular age group. And I just want to know, well, you might not have to answer, but how does everyone feel about that kind of, how it affects them, being that group of kids through those key changes?
Yeah, obviously the NCA thing's way out of my control. And I understand what you're saying. There's probably two or three things I could say to sort of assure you. One is the kids in the class are still going to be taught the full curriculum. They're not going to be shortchanged, if you like, on that front. And while the research is a factor in their day-to-day, if you like, causing learning, so the plan on a page we've got and we say we're about causing learning, is the driving factor. So if it's not working, like if we've got an AI, like a GEM set up, for example, for a maths topic, and it's not working for a couple of kids, then my instruction to Tetley is not going to be make it work, come on Harry, make it work. My instruction to Tetley is going to be child needs to make progress first. So yeah, probably the best I can.
Thank you.
And so, sorry, one thing just to confirm, if I was like basically all the kids will use the Chromebook at the same time, but potentially all of them will be using AI for their learning, but some won't be potentially in that programming that will be still on the Chromebook, but not using that. But they won't have, the people who involved won't have more time on the Chromebook.
No.
Okay, that's just the time on the Chromebook used in a different way.
Yep.
Is that
essentially the difference is if I've got consent from the parent for that child, then they're going to be asked to do like a weekly thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to them and video them periodically, particularly in the first half of the year. You'll get a survey from me periodically as well. That's the difference. So there's a bit more, there's a couple more tasks if you like, but yeah, they won't. They'll notice that. I mean, the kids that are in the research will know what's going on because we would talk to them about that. And the kids in the class will notice, oh, the AI thing's really gone up a level or 3 from what we used to do. But everybody will be in that boat.
And I'd say for none of the kids for none of them would be new to it. So we're playing with it, but so you're looking at it.
Probably the biggest hope I've got as an educator, speaking as an educator rather than a researcher, is the critical thinking element to it. I think that's the really important piece, because the actual AI technology is moving at such a rapid pace, and nobody, even the AI experts, really can keep up with the various engines that are around to interact with AI. But the critical thinking thing is the bit that actually is going to be really helpful for kids going forward, because that's such an element that we don't really teach well enough and deep enough. And if anything's going to be needed in the future, it's then to think critically about the information that's being spat out, in whatever form it's being spat out, and where it's being spat out. So that's the bit I'm really quite curious to see how that goes. Because if I go back to my original problem, which is the primary curriculum's too full, and if I zeroed the curriculum out and started again, critical thinking would be a key element that I would have in there. Any other questions?
What would be your next steps from here?
Oh, right.
She's on the pod.
It's like we rehearsed that, but we didn't. Sam's supposed to be on a plane now going to Australia. So I can't get consent from people because I haven't got ethics approval, so I can't give you a consent form to sign up. So the next best thing is if you scan that QR code. It'd be good if you did that before you left today. And you would be taken to a Google form, and it basically just asks you for your email address and your name and your child's name. And all you're doing is registering interest. And so when I have ethics approval, I will send out the necessary forms and you will sign your life away.
Or your child's name.
And for families that aren't here today that would like to hear more, what are their steps?
I'm going to have to write to them. Yep. So that's the next step, is to write to them and try and explain what I just said tonight in writing.
Good job, it's a fabulous video.
We may edit the video a little bit, so it's a bit more watchable. So, well, one cool way is, just give an example there, that we had WIG presentations. So a couple of weeks ago, the staff had to present all their maths achievement data to the board and their colleagues. And Guy Constable, who's the consultant we use for our maths program, had come over in the year, and Claire had asked him for some feedback on what he'd seen across the school. So he wrote an email, which is really bland, you know, because it was an email, it was just text. So she threw that into Notebook LM, which is part of Google's AI sphere. And it produced a really exciting video with an American accent, styling the virtues of what he'd seen across the school. Okay.
I've got, sorry, one quick question. Last one, sorry. What about the teachers? How you feel about being part of that?
Excited.
Yeah.
It's great, and it's awesome to have Titley through in Kawerau, because she's like, Titley, what have you found next? She brings an awesome IT mind to things as well. Yeah, it'd be a good group of us to work together and look at, again, keeping the child at the centre, and then but looking at what tools we can use just to do the very best one. It's fun. Good to be learning.
So it's just going to be 7 and 8s.
Numbers back.
It depends a bit on the uptake. Yeah, at the moment, but if that uptake needs, we've got 6, 7, 8 there, and we've got the possibility of having 4 6, 7, 8 classes, or 2 7, 8s and 2 6, 7.
So in Kawerau, there'll be years 6, 7, and 8.
Yep.
But the slice and dice is not locked in yet. So this, like, invite tonight went out to all parents, or all next year parents of Kawerau. I've got Sarah nodding her head, and I've got the other Sarah. 7
Next
8s.
year's 7 and 8s.
Oh, next year's 7 8s. Okay. There we go. We're both nodding the same way now. That's good.
So the kids won't be separated from their friendship groups or anything like that.
No, that's the intention. But you know, it turns out saying we can't be all things to all people.
No, I mean in the context of this.
No.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like
Sorry, I know that.
Yeah, I know what you mean when you've been
Yep.
schools when you're like you're signed up for computer class and you're
Yeah, that's what I
no,
mean,
it's not
yeah.
like-
No.
And in some senses I'll be with them more, because if we're 2 team teaching, then they're going to be.
Does this mean also that we can view the data that's been put in, or the information that, you know,
Yeah.
they're doing on a daily basis with it?
I'm not sure. We haven't talked about how we're gonna share
Yeah.
what's happening. What I intend to do a couple of times during the first 6 months of the year is run a little meeting and say, this is what we're finding, this is what we're seeing. Because I think it's important to, you know, there'll be some parents that are really interested to see what's going on, because it is quite new. Like, it's quite new and emerging, and we are, I wouldn't say we're on the bleeding edge, we're certainly on the cutting edge of trying to figure this out in a primary context. So the question for us, for me and for us as a school, is do we wait till a whole bunch of other people have been there, done that, and we come along behind, or do we have a play and see what we can find out?
And so the kids will be able to do that at home as well, to follow that at home. Like, for example, even if they are not in that internet protected.
Yeah, because
school.
they'll be, so as long as they log into their Google account.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're
that's
not sure. It might depend on the particular AI engine, but the Google-based ones certainly. So Gemini and Notebook LM and Gems that Teddy was talking about, certainly. Yep. It was interesting because Google Google turned on Gemini and their other AIs, all of them, Gems and Notebook LM, turned it on for kids
Yep, August.
August. So you had to actually opt out. So they were very confident because if you go and if you ever want to go into the back end of privacy statements that tech companies put up, which I have to do for my ethics approval. So you go in there and the work that the companies are putting in to assure the users that they are protecting the data is considerable. So when Google decided to do that, it's because they ticked all the boxes with ISO and code to do that work. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate that. I'm going to scan the code, register your interest. That would be much appreciated.